He and I have a very unique relationship. He thinks I didn't like him when I first got here, which is not true. I just told him the truth, and he didn't like that. But to watch him mature and become a leader, the energy he brings in the building, the unbelievable plays that he's made. He's an all-pro. He looks like the other all-pros out there. And for him to do it as a rookie in the middle of this defense has been incredible. If it sounds like I'm stumping for him, I am. But I have a hard time imagining there's another rookie out there that had the impact at the level he had for the amount of games and what was his playtime percentage. I mean, it's off the charts.
The Cleveland Browns just experienced one of the most awkward moments in recent NFL memory, and nobody saw it coming. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, the man at the epicenter of one of the 2025 season's most explosive quarterback controversies, just did something almost unheard of in this league. In what can only be described as a carefully disguised apology buried in corporate coach speak, Stefanski basically admitted he sabotaged Shedeur Sanders' rookie season. The timing? Absolutely brutal. This came just 24 hours before what many believe will be Sanders' final start in a Browns uniform, and quite possibly Stefanski's last press conference as Cleveland's head coach. This isn't gossip or speculation. This is on video for the entire world to witness. The man who denied Sanders' first-team reps, the coach who allegedly pushed false narratives about the rookie's preparation and meeting attendance, the same person who prioritized Dillon Gabriel over a first-round quarterback talent, just stood in front of cameras and essentially admitted he was wrong without actually saying those words. In the NFL, coaches operate on pride and ego. They rarely, if ever, admit mistakes, especially mid-season, and especially regarding their handling of high-profile draft picks. What Stefanski did in this Week 18 press conference shattered that code entirely. Let's back up and break down exactly how we reached this shocking moment. The Shedeur Sanders saga in Cleveland has been a textbook case of organizational dysfunction. From the moment the Browns selected Sanders, questions swirled. Did the coaching staff actually want him, or was he forced on them by ownership or front office executives, hungry for a splash? The evidence supporting the latter has been piling up since draft day. Sanders, despite being one of the most NFL-ready quarterback prospects in recent memory, was inexplicably kept away from first-team reps in practice. This wasn't a smart development plan where a veteran mentors a youngster. This was systematic exclusion. Things got worse when anonymous sources inside the organization started leaking stories that painted Sanders in a terrible light. Reports surfaced claiming he wasn't prepared for team meetings, that he sat in the back of meeting rooms showing disinterest, that he lacked the maturity and work ethic for professional football. These narratives felt coordinated and intentional, designed to shape public perception and give the coaching staff cover for keeping him benched. Anyone who followed Sanders at Colorado knew these characterizations were completely inconsistent with everything he'd shown throughout his college career. This was a quarterback who played through broken bones, who elevated an entire program, who handled intense media scrutiny with remarkable composure and professionalism. The idea that he suddenly became an unmotivated slacker once he got to Cleveland made zero sense. Then came the Dillon Gabriel situation, perhaps the most insulting development of all. When injuries and poor performance finally forced the Browns to make a quarterback change, Stefanski didn't turn to his first-round investment in Sanders. Instead, he gave opportunities to Gabriel, a quarterback with significantly less draft pedigree and talent. The message was crystal clear and absolutely brutal. Stefanski would rather lose with literally anyone else at quarterback than give Sanders a fair shot to prove himself. This wasn't coaching, this was personal. This was a man so committed to being right about his initial evaluation that he was willing to tank his team's season and potentially his own career to avoid admitting he'd misjudged Sanders. Only when the situation became completely untenable, when fan outrage hit a boiling point, when media members openly questioned his decision-making, did Stefanski finally relent and insert Sanders into the starting lineup. And what happened? Sanders showed exactly why he was considered a top quarterback prospect. He displayed arm talent, pocket awareness, leadership qualities, and mental toughness. He made plays nobody else on the roster could make. He gave the Browns something they hadn't had in years, a quarterback who could actually win games instead of just managing them. Sanders led Cleveland to victories, including a huge win over division rival Pittsburgh, one of the NFL's toughest defensive units. He did all of this despite receiving minimal preparation time, despite being thrown into action without the benefit of first-team reps, despite operating behind an offensive line that had struggled all season, despite working with a receiving corps that lacked consistent playmaking ability. The results spoke for themselves. Sanders wasn't just adequate or serviceable, he was legitimately good, showing flashes of brilliance that reminded everyone why he was so highly regarded coming out of college. He extended plays with his mobility, delivered strikes into tight windows, demonstrated remarkable composure for a rookie quarterback making his first NFL starts. Perhaps most impressively, he did all of this while knowing his own coaching staff had actively worked against him for months. The mental toughness required to perform under those circumstances is hard to overstate. Most young quarterbacks would have collapsed under the weight of that organizational dysfunction and behind-the-scenes politics. Sanders thrived in spite of it all. Which brings us to this absolutely stunning press conference. 24 hours before what's widely expected to be Sanders' final start of the season, and quite possibly his final game in a Browns uniform, Stefanski held his standard Week 18 media session. And what happened next will be studied in NFL circles for years to come as either a rare moment of coaching humility or a pathetic attempt at damage control before getting fired. When asked about Sanders and what he's seen from the rookie quarterback, Stefanski didn't deliver the usual bland coach speak about process and development. Instead, he delivered what can only be interpreted as a veiled apology and admission of wrongdoing. Listen carefully to his exact words because the subtext is deafening. Stefanski said he sees progress in Sanders and wants to see continued progress. He talked about all the areas they've been working hard on in practice and meeting rooms. He mentioned how rewarding it is when players take coaching and instruction. Then came the kicker. He specifically noted that Sanders is eager to improve and that you can see growth in each of his starts. Every single one of these statements contains an implicit acknowledgement that Sanders was never the problem. If Sanders is eager to improve, that destroys the narrative about him being unmotivated or unprepared. If he's taking coaching and showing progress in each start, that means he should have been starting from day one to maximize that development curve. If they've been working hard with him in practice and meetings, that contradicts all those leaked stories about his poor preparation and meeting room behavior. Stefanski went even further, praising Sanders for beating Pittsburgh and calling it great for the young man to get a win over a division rival. He acknowledged that games in the AFC North are never easy and expressed pride in how Sanders performed. This is the same coach who just weeks earlier was giving Gabriel opportunities ahead of Sanders. This is the same coach who kept Sanders away from first-team reps. This is the same coach whose organization was leaking negative stories about the rookie's work ethic and preparation. Now suddenly he's proud? Now suddenly he recognizes Sanders' talent and competitive spirit? The hypocrisy and timing are breathtaking. Perhaps most tellingly, Stefanski acknowledged that Sanders got unlucky on one interception and will learn from another. This represents a coach actually defending his quarterback's performance and contextualizing mistakes rather than using them as ammunition to justify benching him. Where was this support earlier in the season? Where was this patience and understanding when Sanders needed it most? The answer is obvious. It wasn't there because Stefanski didn't want Sanders to succeed. He wanted to be proven right about his initial evaluation, that Sanders wasn't ready or wasn't the right fit for his system. The most damning aspect of this entire press conference is what Stefanski didn't say. He didn't explain why Sanders was kept from first-team reps. He didn't address the leaked stories about preparation issues. He didn't justify giving Gabriel opportunities ahead of the more talented Sanders. He didn't outline any coherent development plan that would explain the rookie's treatment. The silence on these critical questions speaks volumes. Stefanski knows he mishandled this situation catastrophically. He knows the football world recognizes his mistakes. He knows his job is likely in jeopardy, partly because of how badly he botched the Sanders situation. This press conference was his last attempt at legacy rehabilitation before getting shown the door. What makes this situation even more compelling is the timing and broader context surrounding the Browns organization. Multiple reports suggest Stefanski is coaching for his job and that ownership has lost patience with the team's continued mediocrity despite significant investment in talent. The Browns entered this season with playoff aspirations and championship talk. They're ending it as one of the league's most disappointing teams, having wasted another year of their competitive window. Stefanski's mismanagement of the quarterback position is cited by numerous analysts and insiders as a primary factor in the team's failures. His stubborn refusal to play Sanders, despite obvious quarterback deficiencies elsewhere on the roster, cost Cleveland multiple winnable games and potentially a playoff berth. The question now becomes what happens next for both Stefanski and Sanders. League sources suggest Stefanski will indeed be fired shortly after the season concludes, with the Browns looking to bring in a coach who can actually develop young quarterback talent and make rational personnel decisions.
For Sanders, the situation is more complicated and potentially heartbreaking. He's demonstrated NFL-level ability when finally given the opportunity, but he's done so on a dysfunctional team with an incompetent coaching staff that actively worked against him. Does Cleveland's next regime want to build around him, or will he forever be associated with this failed season and coaching staff? Will other teams that need quarterback help view him as damaged goods, or will they recognize that he succeeded despite terrible circumstances and see him as an undervalued asset? The broader implications for the NFL are significant as well. The Sanders situation highlights ongoing problems with how some organizations handle quarterback development and rookie integration. Too many coaches prioritize their own job security and ego over what's best for the team long-term. Too many front offices failed to align scouting, coaching, and player development departments, leading to situations where talented prospects are sabotaged by staffs that never wanted them in the first place. The league needs to examine these systemic issues if it wants to avoid wasting the careers of talented young quarterbacks who have the misfortune of landing in dysfunctional organizations. Sanders' resilience throughout this ordeal has been remarkable and should enhance his reputation around the league. He handled an impossible situation with grace and professionalism. He never publicly complained about his treatment or threw coaches under the bus, despite having every justification to do so. He stayed ready, put in the work even when it seemed futile, and delivered when his number was finally called. These are exactly the qualities successful NFL quarterbacks must possess. The mental toughness and maturity Sanders displayed during this nightmare rookie season actually prove he has what it takes to succeed at the highest level. The contrast between Sanders' conduct and Stefanski's behavior couldn't be more stark. The rookie maintained professionalism and composure while being systematically undermined. The veteran head coach engaged in petty politics, spread narratives through media proxies, and made irrational personnel decisions that hurt his own team. When the truth became undeniable and the pressure became overwhelming, Stefanski tried to save face with a transparent pseudo-apology disguised as quarterback evaluation. It's pathetic and cowardly, the actions of someone who knows he was wrong but lacks the integrity to explicitly admit it and apologize directly. This press conference will be remembered as one of the most uncomfortable and revealing moments of the 2025 NFL season. It exposed the toxic dynamics within the Browns organization. It confirmed what many suspected about Stefanski's role in sabotaging Sanders. It demonstrated the consequences when ego and politics superseded competent football operations. Most importantly, it vindicated Sanders and everyone who believed he deserved a fair opportunity from day one. The rookie was never the problem. The coaching staff that refused to properly utilize him was always the issue. As Sanders prepares for what may be his final game in a Browns uniform, he can take satisfaction in knowing he proved himself despite facing circumstances that would have broken lesser players. He showed NFL-level ability, won games for his team, and handled adversity with remarkable maturity.
Whatever happens next in his career, whether he remains in Cleveland under new coaching or lands with another organization that will properly appreciate his talents, Sanders has demonstrated he belongs in this league. The same cannot be said for Kevin Stefanski, whose legacy in Cleveland will forever be tarnished by his catastrophic mishandling of one of the most promising young quarterbacks in football. The NFL is a results-oriented business where excuses mean nothing and performance is everything. Stefanski failed on both fronts this season. He produced terrible results with a roster that should have competed for the playoffs. He then tried to excuse those failures by scapegoating a rookie quarterback who ultimately proved Stefanski wrong when finally given minimal opportunity. This press conference was Stefanski's last desperate attempt to control the narrative before the inevitable happens and he's fired. But the truth is already out there for everyone to see. Kevin Stefanski sabotaged Shedeur Sanders throughout the 2025 season, and no amount of last-minute praise or thinly veiled apologies can change that fundamental reality. The coaching profession demands accountability, integrity, and the ability to admit mistakes. Stefanski demonstrated none of these qualities in his handling of Sanders. He made irrational decisions based on pride rather than sound football evaluation. He allowed organizational politics to override his responsibility to put the best players on the field. He participated in a smear campaign against a rookie who had done nothing to deserve such treatment. When the truth became undeniable, he offered weak praise and coded language rather than a straightforward apology and explanation. This is leadership failure at its most profound level. For Browns fans who have endured decades of quarterback instability and organizational dysfunction, this situation represents yet another chapter in a long, painful story. They watched their team draft a talented quarterback prospect only to see the coaching staff refuse to properly develop or utilize him. They witnessed another season spiral into disappointment despite having talent that should have competed for championships. They're now facing another coaching search and another roster reset because the people running their franchise continue making the same fundamental mistakes. The frustration and anger are completely justified. The only silver lining in this debacle is that Sanders' talent and character ultimately shone through despite the obstacles placed in his path. He proved he can play in this league. He showed the mental toughness to overcome a toxic organizational environment. He demonstrated the physical tools and football intelligence to succeed at the highest level. Whatever uniform he's wearing next season, Sanders will have opportunities because the tape doesn't lie. When he was finally on the field, he made plays and won games. That's what matters most in this league. As for Stefanski, his coaching career in Cleveland is effectively over. The press conference that was supposed to preview the final game of the season instead became his unintentional farewell address. The praise he heaped on Sanders was really an acknowledgement that he was wrong all along. The pride he expressed in the rookie's development was an admission that Sanders should have been given those opportunities months earlier. The entire performance was a coach trying to salvage some dignity before walking the plank. It was too little, too late, and far too transparent to be effective. This story will be studied in coaching circles and front offices around the league as a cautionary tale about what happens when organizations allow personal agendas and politics to supersede sound football decisions. The Browns had a talented young quarterback who could have been developing and improving from day one of the season. Instead, they wasted months keeping him on the bench, leaked false narratives about his character and work ethic, and gave opportunities to less talented players because the coaching staff refused to admit they had misjudged him initially. The organizational dysfunction and leadership failure are staggering. Get down in the comments right now and let everyone know your thoughts on this absolutely wild situation. Do you think Stefanski's press conference was a genuine acknowledgement that he was wrong, or just damage control before he gets fired? Where do you think Shedeur Sanders will be playing next season, and will he get a fresh start with a competent coaching staff? What does this say about the Browns organization and their ability to properly develop young talent? The conversation around this story is just getting started, and the implications will reverberate throughout the league for months to come. Make sure you hit that like button if you found this breakdown informative, and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest NFL drama as this situation continues to unfold. The offseason is going to be absolutely wild in Cleveland, with coaching changes, roster moves, and critical decisions about Sanders' future all coming down the pipeline. You don't want to miss a single development in what has become one of the most compelling and controversial stories of the season. Super impressive. What do you attribute that type of success to? A perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with how some NFL organizations operate. Talented players being held back by incompetent coaching, ego and politics superseding winning, anonymous media leaks and narrative warfare replacing honest evaluation and communication. When the truth finally becomes undeniable, weak attempts at damage control rather than genuine accountability. It's a pattern that repeats itself across the league with depressing regularity, and it's exactly why so many promising careers are derailed before they ever really begin. Sanders deserves better than what he experienced in Cleveland this season. He deserves a coaching staff that believes in him, develops him properly, and gives him every opportunity to succeed. He deserves an organization that values talent over politics and winning over being right. Whether he finds that in Cleveland under new coaching or lands with another organization that will properly appreciate his talents, Sanders has demonstrated he belongs in this league. The same cannot be said for Kevin Stefanski, whose legacy in Cleveland will forever be tarnished by his catastrophic mishandling of one of the most promising young quarterbacks in football. The NFL is a results-oriented business where excuses mean nothing and performance is everything. Stefanski failed on both fronts this season. He produced terrible results with a roster that should have competed for the playoffs. He then tried to excuse those failures by scapegoating a rookie quarterback, who ultimately proved Stefanski wrong when finally given minimal opportunity. This press conference was Stefanski's last desperate attempt to control the narrative before the inevitable happens and he's fired. But the truth is already out there for everyone to see. Kevin Stefanski sabotaged Shedeur Sanders throughout the 2025 season, and no amount of last-minute praise or thinly veiled apologies can change that fundamental reality.
Sanders deserves better than what he experienced in Cleveland this season. He deserves a coaching staff that believes in him, develops him properly, and gives him every opportunity to succeed. He deserves an organization that values talent over politics and winning over being right. Whether he finds that in Cleveland under new leadership or with another franchise remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: Shedeur Sanders has proven he belongs in the NFL. And Kevin Stefanski has proven he doesn't belong anywhere near a talented young quarterback ever again. That's the real takeaway from this stunning, uncomfortable, revealing press conference that will go down as one of the defining moments of the 2025 NFL season. Until next time, keep those notifications on, stay locked in for all the latest updates, and remember to shake off the haters, because the truth always comes out eventually. Peace.